In 2008, like everybody else, I got laid off. But honestly, that was the best thing that has ever happened to me in my career because I took about a day to pout and the next day started my own PR business.
The following is a Big Sky Economic Development production.
Welcome to The Vault, a Montana-based business podcast where we highlight the people and ideas driving our region forward. I'm your host, Marcel Brewski.
You're listening to The Vault.
Joining us today on The Vault is Blythe, captain of Bigger Fish PR and Media Relations. Blythe is a highly motivated and creative PR and communications executive with a keen sense of storytelling, a track record of securing high-quality media coverage, and proven experience in building relationships with key influencers and press. I pulled that from your LinkedIn because finding stuff about you was a little hard for me, but you're the lady that gets all these great people and sending them our way and in other spaces as well. So welcome to The Vault.
Thank you so much for having me. And I think, you and I were just talking before we started, and it is, a little difficult to find information about me because I'm so hyper focused on telling my clients' stories. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and the platform to share a little bit about me and my business. So
yeah, I'm really excited to have you because we've got connected because you reached out. So those listening, you reached out. We had one of your clients on our podcast, and I was like, she though has a story, and Nick Steen too, and he's like, you've got to have her on. So just really happy to have you on The Vault.
Yeah, well, it's exciting to be part of the Montana business community. Nick and I go way back. I know he's sort of a figure there in Billings, but he and I got to know each other when he was working at Lone Mountain Ranch, when I was living in Big Sky, when I first moved to Montana about almost 15 years ago now.
Wow.
And I was doing some freelance PR for the property there and got to know Nick in that capacity. And he's just such a gem. And I'm glad that he and I have stayed connected. And after I heard his podcast, that's kind of was the impetus for me to reach out to you. So full circle.
Yeah, here we are. He's a fun guy. I think I'll see him later this week. I see him quite often because Hit Walkers is a frequented spot for me. But you mentioned moving to Montana about 15 years ago, but I'd love to dive a little bit deeper back and learn a little bit for our audience, for them to learn a little bit more about where'd you grow up? What was your upbringing like that really led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I guess I will start from the beginning. So I grew up in Chicago. Until I was about 15 years old. My dad got a job transfer to California. So I moved as a freshman in high school, which at that time in my life, I thought my life is over. But really looking back, I am grateful for that experience because that was sort of my first chance to not necessarily reinvent myself, but have to really put myself out there and start over. And now looking back, that was just the first time of now many where I've had to sort of start over, whether that be geographically or in my career. So as much as I was sort of going through the I hate my parents phase at that moment in my life, I am grateful for that.
So what was it like? I mean, early on, so you're like in a huge city, right? You're in Chicago. What was it like growing up until you were, because like you're going to high school and you're like, at any, high school, I feel like that's a traumatic move at any given point where you're like, all my friends are here. Like, this is where we're at. But what was it like for you growing up in Chicago?
It was a great city. Still has a very special place in my heart. And I tried to go back there at one point in my career, and we'll probably get into that. But we moved, from a suburb of Chicago to the San Francisco Bay Area where things were very diverse. It was sort of right at the beginning of the tech boom. So it was just, it was a lot. I was a minority in my high school, but luckily I was athletic and I was able to secure a spot on the varsity tennis team. So that was an instant group of friends. The challenge there is playing a varsity sport as a freshman. You get to know the girls who are upperclassmen and then they move on. And then again, speaking of starting over, then I felt like I started all over again. But I played competitive tennis for a while, not just in high school, but not for the high school team, but junior USTA too. So
wow,
that probably was a kickoff to my competitive spirit.
Mm-hmm.
which I also get from both of my parents too. Very, very career driven individuals. My dad is 78 years old and I think just retired for the third time. And just called me and said, "Hey, I want to go on a trip. What do you think about this?" And I'm like, "Dad, call me in 20 years. That sounds great, but I can't take
Hmm.
this off." So yeah, I think unfortunately slash fortunately, that's in my blood is just this like go, go, go mentality. And
A hustle. So now I have to ask, what were his like what did he retire from one, two, and three?
well, same career, just re-entered. He was a commercial real estate developer for the same company for a very long time. Was with that company in Chicago. They transferred him to the San Francisco Bay Area to open up the office there. And I think he was with the company for nearly 50 years. So
Wow.
that says a lot. Yeah, and
You don't
he's
hear that very often
no, you
anymore.
don't. He's old school. He still has a Rolodex on his desk, and
Ugh,
every time
I
I
love
go
it.
visit him, we laugh about that. He's like, "I don't even know why I have this. All these people in here are dead." But same. He retired when he tried to retire the first time to Arizona, seeking a warmer climate. But he's still there and working on some development projects with some friends and things like that. So I have that in my blood, and I'm grateful for that. My mom has passed, but she was also a business owner. She was an interior designer and made a very good name for herself, not only in Chicago, but in California as well. I feel like now I have to whisper this, but I did move here from California 15 years ago, from San Francisco. But I tried to leave once after 3 years living in Big Sky. I woke up one day and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And at that time, Big Sky and Bozeman, Southwest Montana wasn't what it is today, right?
Hmm.
I just felt like the career opportunities weren't quite here for me yet. So I did leave. I packed up all my things and moved to Chicago for a job with a media relations agency working predominantly with hotels and restaurants. Made it 11 months and came running back to Montana. So this is
Well,
home.
it's home, and you're originally from Chicago, and we have great people that have come from California
Yeah.
too in the state. I think we take all good kinds that just fit Montana.
For sure. Yeah. I think I like to say that I moved here from California before it was a hip thing to do.
It was the cool, trendy thing to do. Yeah. But I want to walk back a little bit about I think the move was a big deal. Getting into tennis, playing a varsity sport as a freshman in San Francisco is like, dang, wow, impressed by that. But what were some other things that like you were into that maybe shaped a little bit of your next path after high school, during your time in San Francisco?
Yeah, as a family, we traveled a lot. We were fortunate enough when we lived, going back to Chicago, when we lived in Chicago, we had a home in Mexico. So I was able to develop another language, starting from a very young age. So I am fluent in Spanish, which I used a lot in California, not so much here in Montana, although more and more I am finding that I can use it. So that's great. But my parents were always encouraging us to try new things. I studied abroad in high school at Oxford University and
Wow.
got a degree from Oxford in creative writing, which look at me now, I'm using that
Hmm.
today, 22 years later. Even more, I guess. I just dated myself, but that's okay. But yeah, European travel a lot. And then, when it came time to go to college, I always wanted to go to school on the East Coast, just quintessential ivy covered brick old buildings, that campus feel. So I left California after 4 years and went to Lehigh University in Pennsylvania.
And what made you choose? So, because you were kind of Midwest in Chicago, then California, and now you're like, okay, I get to choose where I'm going next. Like, this is kind of like my next step alone to figure out what made you choose that university.
I've always been brave. I am not a homebody. I don't get homesick. Whereas my younger sister would get homesick like down the block. She'd call my mom from a sleepover and say, I just please come do this. So again, I mean, I think just being brave and taking a step and putting myself out there and taking a chance. And again, when I thought of college in my mind, I just thought of these, historic old campuses, these, cool, just old buildings like the library that I studied in. I just felt I could hear and feel the history there. And when I went to Lehigh for the tour, it just felt like the right fit for me. It was the right size school. It's about back then I'd have to look now, but I think the undergrad back then was about 5,000. So
Oh, so a smaller school.
smaller,
Yeah.
I was meeting people and then seeing them again, compared to some of these bigger universities where you might meet someone your freshman year and then you never see them again. And it was good for me because it was close to Philadelphia, it was close to New York, so I could still get that city fix. But I was going to school on this, very very spirited campus where we like to say it was, the beginning of my work hard, play hard mentality. It was historically on the Playboy's top party school list, like, but we studied hard. I mean, I know when my dad dropped me off, he said, "Okay, kid, you got 4 years, and after that, it's up to you." So I started in the business college, and after I got a D in my economics class, I called them and I said, "Dad, I don't think this business stuff is for me. I'm going to transfer to the arts and sciences college, and I'm going to get a degree in journalism." And he said, "Oh, so you're going to be poor."
You're like, thanks, Dad.
Thanks for that, for the vote of confidence. But
Hmm.
no, he's always been very supportive and still is to this day. But I ended up actually with a triple major in journalism, communications, and political science.
Wow, that's a nice little trio. What pulled you to journal? Because you're like, business, not so much. But what was the pull? Like, what was the pull to journalism for you?
I love to write. I've just always had a knack for writing. Math and numbers are not my gig at all. My sister is a veterinarian. She has very much the math and science brain, and
Hmm.
I'm more on the, writing, creative thinking, problem solving, that type of thing. And just as I started my coursework in journalism and communications, and then even with the political science, that stuff just came easy to me. 50-page paper, I'm like, I got it the night before, just jam it out, no big deal. And I remember some of my classmates, working weeks ahead on it. And I work well under pressure, and that's still true to this day.
And put it under. Yeah, I'm like thinking of my own college experience. My dad was like, 4 years, Marcel, because I went to a smaller school too, but in Montana. And then I think I was like your other classmates where I'm like, if I'm going to write this big paper, I need to start like in advance. So you really push it to the last hour, but do it well, right?
Sometimes, yeah,
And
literally,
it's
like,
probably way better than anyone's that started way early. Yours is probably, yeah, was great.
well, not necessarily. That's just how I
Well,
work better under pressure. And maybe that goes back to the athletic competitive spirit. It's just like having to perform in the moment.
so what were some other things you did while at school? Did you have to do like an internship because that degree is really unique with communications, journalism, and political science, which you could really do anything with that combo.
Yeah, so one of my internships was at Nazareth Speedway, a racetrack nearby.
Wow.
It has history with the Penske family. Roger Penske is also a Lehigh graduate. So my mom in her first career was actually a professional race car driver. So that whole world was sort of in my blood. Um,
I see the competitiveness. Okay. It
yeah,
comes from, mhm.
for sure. And I have a lead foot, I have to admit.
That's impressive. Just to pause for a moment that your mom did. That's like, damn, mom, like impressed by you.
Yeah, she was a badass. And she remade herself too, right? I mean, that was her first career. And then when she moved to Chicago, she was working for Xerox, met my dad. And when she decided that it was time for them to have a family, that's when she went back to interior design school and then started her own business at that time. But when I went to Lehigh, I've always been an avid angler, a fly fisher, which is, part of my business name, and we can get into that. But I started the fly fishing club at Lehigh because there was not one.
And this might be a dumb question, but is there places to fly fish?
There are, yeah.
Okay.
Not so much right there in Bethlehem. The Lehigh River is, I wouldn't probably even set foot in the Lehigh River. It's an old steel mill town, right? So the
Yeah.
water is polluted, but Western Pennsylvania, different parts of the state, super beautiful. And all up and down the East Coast, there's some really nice spring creeks and things to fish. But I wrote a grant, got some funding from the university, started this club, and it was me and like 12 guys. So double purpose, I guess, there.
Oh.
So we had a good time, traveling around the state and things like that. And then after I graduated, I was still kind of on the sports track. My first job in PR was for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I don't know if there's any NBA fans listening, but it was when Allen Iverson was on the team. And that was quite a challenge for me, especially being so young in my career. And it was more of like a crisis communications role more than anything.
Which tell me, because I am not as familiar with that specific player.
Just very athletic creature, but difficult by nature for anyone that's listening and they want to look it up. There's some good
Yeah, like a Dennis Rodman kind of situation where
kind of,
we're like
yeah,
off.
not a good rule follower, that type of thing. But also I learned very quickly what I didn't want to do. And I think that's important, for the audience and something that I always say to younger people that I mentor is sometimes it's easier to figure out what you don't want to do. Right. So I was working these crazy hours, I was in the office during the day. I was attending pregame press conferences. I was attending the games, and then I was hosting the postgame press conferences. And then because I was a young staff member and on the PR team, I often went out with the players after the games, out to the clubs and things like that. So it was like, whoa, who put me in charge of these guys, right?
But like, what a fun, I mean, point in time, and like, what was the interview process to get like something like that? Because that's like a big deal to work for a team.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I think that I went to school nearby, right? I was already local. I had already spent quite a bit of time in the city. I do love sports. I was passionate about, the team and basketball. I think my internship with the racetrack, really gave me an entree into sort of the local media who were sports reporting. So I had some of those contacts already. And remember, this was a long time ago, right? Where you're still like faxing press releases and every morning I would have to go to the office and get all the newspapers locally and clip out all the articles about the game the night before and put them into this clip book and make Xerox copies and run them up to the GM. And I mean, just crazy stuff, right? Now it's like everything is just right at your fingertips. You just quick search online and there are your articles. But again, I'm dating myself, but it was a grind for sure.
And like a hustle, like I think like people now in it won't appreciate it because they're like, you don't realize like that you're faxing things. Like people, like there's a generation that doesn't even know what a fax machine is.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, people have this idea that working in sports is like this sexy industry and like, oh, how fun and cool. And like, it's not. Like, I mean, I barely slept. There were times I remember one day the guy who was in the mascot called in sick, and I had to wear that thing. I've never been so sick in my entire life. That thing was not pleasant at all.
And then you're
Um,
having to like probably wear it and like interact with fans all day.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and like talk about literally taking one for the team. I had to do
Other
that.
duties as assigned. Wear the
Yeah,
mascot outfit.
yep. And so I did that for about a year. I lasted a full season and then a summer, and they were very community involved during the summer. They did some camps for kids in inner city schools and things like that. And to me, that was the most rewarding part of that job, is just getting out there and interacting with those kids and students who might not otherwise have an opportunity to attend a basketball camp or meet with the players and that type of thing. So that was early, very early in my career. And then at some point I decided, my family's still on the West Coast. I need to get back that way.
And did you make it back because your parents were over there? You talk about having a younger sister. She
I
was
did.
probably in the midst of vet school or school.
Yeah, yep. She was in vet school in California. Well, she at that point, I guess she was in her undergrad at Cal Poly, in San Luis Obispo, which has also a very special place in my heart. It's just such a beautiful part of the country. So of course I had to go check in on her and make sure she was doing the party thing, right? Like just
Mm-hmm.
spend so much time with the books. And we still laugh about some of those experiences too. But so I moved back to San Francisco, back to the city, and took a job with an agency. I remember the job posting on Craigslist of all places, and the title says, "Do you like food and wine?" And I was like, "Is this a trick?" And it was for an agency in the city that all of the clients were wineries and restaurants. So two of my passions, wine and
Mm-hmm.
food.
Like wine,
So
food. Sign
yeah,
me
like
up.
what's not to like? So I did. I worked for that agency, I think for 4 years, and I actually got hired away by a client, by one of the winery clients. And in 2008, like everybody else, I got laid off.
Okay.
Yeah, by that winery client. But honestly, that was the best thing that has ever happened to me in my career because I took about a day to pout, and the next day started my own PR business.
Wow. So what was it? I really want to get into like you starting your business, like, and it sounds like you were like quick to make that decision, but what was it like transitioning from working in sports, kind of being in that sports realm to then food and wine?
Yeah, I mean, two things I think that bring joy to people, right? These are fun categories, fun sectors to work in. I learned a lot about wine and winemaking, a lot of really unique individuals. They're artists, really, that,
Hmm.
winemakers are artists. And I had great experiences all up and down, Napa, Sonoma, even Lodi.
Oh, I love Lodi. We get a shit. We do like a quarter, our cut, like my cousins, we do like a quarterly shipment from a place out of Lodi. Anyways, Lodi.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So again, here I am. I'm fairly young in my career. I'm traveling all up and down, in Northern California, visiting with wineries.
That's a dream for a young professional to be like, hi, this is my job. Like it's real life.
Yep, super fun. And I did some wine sales as well, which I quickly learned I'm not a salesperson. I like to talk and tell stories more so than I like to sell the product. So again, I just had to educate myself about a different media market, getting to know different reporters, whether it be for, the San Francisco Chronicle or Food and Wine Magazine, just very diverse network of media contacts. And I was hosting events, right? Like my work events were these lavish dinners paired with wine and again my friends are like, how is this your job, right? And but it's work, it's PR is work. And they say, my friends would say, like, God, you must have like just the best meals and all this good wine, but I'm acting as a host at those events along with my client. I rarely had time to sit down and eat and drink. I mean, that was
Yeah, you're
not
like eating after or before.
like scraps off other people's plates, right?
Hmm.
So it was just it's an interesting industry, very unique, fairly laid back, but on the PR side of it, it's stressful, right? I mean, there's a lot of competition, especially in Northern California with the winery business. There's just a ton of them. So my challenge was, what can I do for my clients to help them stand out and get their name in the news?
And what were some of those things that you found that worked well? Working there for a while, like what were some of those things? Because it is like you're going to wine country because there's like a winery, every other mile.
Yeah, I think just pairing the right foods, pairing the right experiences, really hosting people. A lot of the wineries, they'll send bottles of wine to a reporter in New York, but my thing was always like, let's get them out here. Let's give them that sense of place. Let's let them touch the dirt, talk to the winemaker, smell the barrels, all of those things. It's very different than receiving a bottle of wine at your desk, in Times Square.
It means something different when you know where it comes from.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know it, probably being a wine club owner, it's like, or a wine club member, excuse me, wine just tastes better in the place.
It does. And it like I'm like, is this, and it's a good wine. We really love the vineyard, but it's like, it also brings back the memories of being there, right? Like the memories, we're sitting there having it. It's been, it just brings the memories back too.
And I've always just tried to experience, my clients and what they're offering first so that I can then be better prepared to tell the story. So, and it's something that I still do in my business today is focus on experiential things for reporters, right? I mean, they want to do something different. They do want to be wined and dined. They do want to travel. They do. I always joke in my next life, I'm coming back as a reporter because the trips and the dinners and all of that. And yes, they work for it and it's such a craft. They do. But yeah, next time I'm coming back on the other side.
Like I'm going to be wined and dined instead. Yeah. Yeah. So then you talk about in 2008, it hit and you're like, okay, let's go. I just had a big life change.
I didn't have a choice. I was single income household, and I couldn't take a step. And fortunately, some of my clients from the agency decided to come over. I still feel kind of bad about this, but to come over to work with me in my business because I was by myself. I wasn't a large agency. My rates were competitive. They enjoyed working with me in the past, and that was the biggest compliment, right? Is for them to call me and say, "Hey, we see that you're on your own now. We still want to work with you." A lot of them were pretty bummed when I left the agency.
I bet they were.
4 years is a long time to develop a relationship with someone and get to know them and get to know their families and their story and just the history of the place. So my client in Lodi, actually, it's Michael David Winery, and they make the Seven Deadly Zins, which is
Oh, I've heard of them. Yeah.
so they were my first client when I
Wow.
started off on my own. And those guys are great. It's a family run operation. It's two brothers, that were at the helm, and I traveled all over the world with them. Actually, we went all over the country. I went to China for work with them. So again, just these amazing experiences. I'm blessed, super blessed.
For those listening that maybe are like, oh, like I kind of want to start my own business or get more into that space, like I have that thing, like what was that like for you? Really, like the nitty-gritty details of going from not having a job and you're like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to look for a different job. I'm going to do my own thing. Like what were some of those things that you did, that you set up, people you called? Because it sounds like, I mean, they all knew that you left or weren't there. So they're like calling you to say, hi, please don't leave us.
Yeah, and again, I mean, super fortunate, right, that my first client came to me. But and when I started my business back up again in Montana, I always say to people, it's like making friends, right? It just takes one. And if you do a good job for that one client, they're going to refer you to people that they know in their industry or that they're also meeting. And you have to put yourself out there. For me, that's the most important thing is networking, going to the events. Even after a long day at my desk, it's like, okay, I got to go to this networking thing and you got to turn it on. You have to keep it on, right? You just never know who you're going to meet. And again, going back to my mom and some of her career advice that she gave me, one thing that she always said was sometimes no means not right now. So I do think there's a fine line between being persistent and being annoying. And luckily I found that line. And it's just keep your head down, keep pushing. No doesn't mean no always, right?
And it seems like that was like a natural find to you of just like your personality and who you are as a person, that you're like, okay, like I'll wait it out and we'll come around again at some point to connect. And maybe the no turns into a yes.
And owning a business is not easy, right? If it was easy, everybody would do it. It's not. And look I didn't move to Montana to work 16-hour days, but here I am. And, again, single income household, single, nobody's coming to save me. I have to say yes to all the things.
Mm-hmm. So did you stay after 2008? So you have a client, and it seems like that's been like the referral has really been what's, how you've gotten additional clients, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you're correct on
Which
that.
is really inspiring. And I think a very unique, neat thing that you've really built that up based on relationships you have with other people.
Thank you. And so when I started my business, a lot of my career focus had been on this food and wine industry. At that point, I decided I didn't want to pigeonhole myself too much, especially starting a new business, a new agency. I wanted to be open to other types of work, which is kind of where I'm at today. I'm still fairly focused. I like to say anywhere you can eat, drink, or stay. A lot of luxury lifestyle goods type clients. Again, you got to work with clients that have the budget for PR. And I've done some pro bono stuff too. But it's just finding a good mix of clients. Something that sets me apart in my agency is I don't take on any competing brands or clients. And when I'm pitching new business and I'm telling, this potential client that's a big deal for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And it is something that sets me apart. Big agencies don't do that.
No, because they might have one over here, one over there, which alluded to it a little bit earlier, but did you have the name the first time around and it hasn't changed? Do you want to talk a little bit about the name?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So when I was in California, the business was called Wine Press, and the PR in press was capitalized.
That's really clever.
And then I guess we kind of skipped over how I got to Montana. So I moved to Montana because I was going through a bad breakup.
Okay.
It's funny because some people say like, "Oh, I moved to this place to be with this person," but yes, I was in a long-term relationship in California, and we owned a condo together. We decided we were going to split up. I didn't want to deal with. I didn't want to deal, really.
Yeah.
So I came to Montana for what I thought was a month.
Which why Montana? Because you've been Chicago, East Coast, Philly, California. What was it about Montana?
Yeah, super candidly, my family had a place in Big Sky at the time. So it was, to me, felt like a safe place to go. And I told my parents, I'm going to go to the house for a month and work, and just kind of take my mind off things, let the place sell, and I'll be back to get my things. I never went back. I sent a moving truck for my thing. And they said, okay, that's cool. Like you can stay in Montana, do what you need to do, but you got to get out of the house. So, I had my own place in Big Sky. And at the time that we had that Allegiant flight from Bozeman to Oakland direct.
Okay.
So it was still cheaper for me to live in Big Sky. Again, this was 15 years ago. Cheaper for me to live in Big Sky and fly back and forth to the Bay Area to see clients a couple times a month and operate my business like that.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if people would say the same
No,
today.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
even a little bit. And at that time, I was starting to sort of reach out to clients and businesses locally. I did some PR work for the Big Sky Chamber of Commerce, so that kind of got me ingrained in the business community there. And I started to spread my wings a little bit, not only in Montana, but around the country too. But yeah, like I said, I left for a little bit, went to Chicago, was working with some big name brands. I did the PR for the Trump Chicago. That was a very
Wow.
interesting time in life. That was when President Trump announced his candidacy for running for president the first time around. So there were some challenges there, and I probably don't want to get into that.
What were some of those experiences, though, if we can ask and chat about it?
Yeah, I mean,
Because you went from Montana back to Chicago for a stint and then back. Is that
yeah, I remember my first day back in Chicago. I was trying to get on the L train to go to work, and it took me like three trains to go by to get the courage to get on the train because there were more people on that train than there were in the town that I moved from, right?
Mhm.
So after you've been removed from that city life for 3 years, and I mean, it's easy living here, right? It's like errands are easy. There's no people complain about traffic, and I just sort of roll my eyes like, okay,
perspective on where we've experienced or lived or been? Because traffic in Montana, I'm like, no, 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 no.
no, it's not a thing. It was good for me at the time. It was good for my career. I forgot how flat it is in Chicago after you've been living in Southwest Montana. Um,
Hmm.
how hot, how humid, I mean, just there's not much to do. I got rid of my car, so I felt kind of trapped. And I think when I took that job and in my mind, I was moving back to Chicago, I thought, oh, all my friends are still there. It's going to be great to reconnect. But what I didn't think about is they'd had already done the city thing. They're now married. They have kids. They've moved to the suburbs. So it was a pretty lonely existence for me. My job is very social, but outside of that, I just felt kind of stagnated. So it was time for me to come back to Montana. And I don't know what it is. It's something about this place just calls to me. And I'm grateful that I have been able to make a business here now. And yes, we have some growing pains here in Bozeman for sure, but it's allowed me to grow my business. And I do have some locally based clients, but I have an international client base. And never did I think that living in Montana, that would be a thing.
And what a cool opportunity. And I think so when you moved to Chicago, did you keep all your business and keep some of those clients and then you took another job, or did you say, "Hey, we're kind of done. I'm just taking this other job"?
Yeah, I kind of left things here. That's when I was doing some work with Lone Mountain Ranch.
Okay. And that's where maybe we meet Nick. Nick enters the scene.
Yes, that's where I had met Nick. Was when I was doing some PR for Lone Mountain Ranch. He was the chef. We did some really fun wine dinners together. But I told my boss there at the time, I said, I have to do this for myself. I need to move back to a city because at that point I felt like I was doing myself a disservice career-wise, living in Big Sky. And back then, I was still fairly young, 30, 31. And I just thought, this place will always be here, right? I can
Hmm.
always come back. And moving back to Bozeman was a better choice for me than living in Big Sky. Big Sky's great. I still go there. I still have friends there. But as someone who's always grown up and lived in cities, Bozeman is a better fit.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And it's still like it feels kind of bigger, not huge, but it has like city like feelings, I would say.
We're getting there.
Yeah. Especially now. Maybe not a while ago, but now it's getting there. So you went to Chicago, worked a little bit, and then came back.
Back to Bozeman.
And not Big Sky. You were like, I'm gonna come back to Bozeman.
Yeah, because even in the year that I was gone, a lot changed in Bozeman. So I moved back here for a job with Zoot Enterprises, was head of PR there for a while. There had always been a company in Big Sky that I wanted to work for when I was living in Big Sky, but there was just never a good fit. And that company is Outlaw Partners. They're an amazing media marketing and events company. When I was working at Zoot, I got a call from someone there that said, "Hey, look, your resume's been on my desk for a while. We now have a position open that seems like it might be a good fit. Would you be interested?" And I loved my team at Zoo. I loved my boss there, Eric. Shout out. I think you're going to interview him here in a couple weeks about his new company. So he and I are still connected. He's with Lucid Org now, but I just said to him, "Look, this is a company that I've always wanted to work for. They're doing great things." He said, "Go, just go." So I was
Which
with.
what a good person to have in your life that I think isn't like, no, you can't leave. It's like, hey, here's an opportunity, you've wanted it. And I just think people like when you have people in your life like that, they're very special and bigger, like pivotal moments.
Right. Right. And there's a reason he and I are still connected because we did have that kind of working relationship where we support each other and respect each other. And when it was time for him to need a publicist for the new company that he's, starting up, of course he called me. So I appreciate that. And that just goes to show is like it's all about relationships in any business. You just have to maintain contact with people. You cannot burn a bridge. You just can't.
You need to be authentic too. And it seems like that's, people really like you, gravitate towards you, and respect the work that you do and its quality. So they do connect with you. So you go to this outlaw. And what did you do for them?
I sort of had a lot of roles, a lot of responsibilities. When I started working there were only 7 of us. And I think today there's like 32 employees. But I was on the marketing side of things. I did do some PR for some of the clients there. A lot of events, they produce the Big Sky PBR, which is, I think now 11 or 12-time event of the year winner. So that says a lot about the team and the work that they're doing. I was pretty involved in, launching a couple of companies with marketing initiatives and again, some PR stuff. Learned so much from Eric, a different Eric, the owner there, and Megan, my boss, and just I'm super grateful for that opportunity. Learned so much.
And what
And
were
about
some of those like startup things that you just mentioned about like helping some of those? Like what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of companies came to us, not only brands that were starting in Southwest Montana, but Eric is very well connected and had some good contacts that had businesses, nationally. And Outlaw has a great reach with their media publications. They have the newspaper, magazine, online. So to me, that was my world is media. And so it was super cool to me that here's this company in Big Sky, right, doing all these big things, and I can be a part of this. And then of course the event side of things. That was fun and a different challenge in of itself. And I think kind of brought me back to my world of sports is like you can plan all year for an event, but that day of the event or those 3 days of the event, it is like go time, right?
Yep. From sunup to sundown, after sundown.
Yep. I mean, like changing toilet paper in the porta potty. Like, okay, if my friends could see me now, right? But
Really living the high life of an event. Well, that's how events are though. It's like, and if you're hosting, you're like, you are on and there are things that need to be taken care of like that. Or, you're serving wine to somebody or whatever you're doing.
yep, yep. I mean, it's just all about the experience for the guest.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
how long were you with them?
I was with them for about 5 years, and I think now it's been almost 3 years since I've left. And this PR earned media thing has just always pulled at my heartstrings, and it was time for me to get back to that. So I started my business again and rebranded, and the name of the company is Bigger Fish, and the goal is in the name to make you the bigger fish in your industry. I do have this angler in me, but I didn't want it to be too kitschy. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, a good balance there.
And how long did that take you to come up? And I love that you call, right? Like captain, which I also love because, are you a team of one? Do you have others? And then where did you come up? How did you come up with that?
I don't know. I think probably 3 in the morning one night when I couldn't sleep, it just came to me.
This is going to be it.
This is it. Yeah. And I got some pushback from some people. And I think once I explained to people, the goal is in the name, they're like, oh, that's cool. I get it. I like it. Some people are like, what are you, a fishing guide? No, I'm not a fishing guide. And captain, it's just a kind of a play on the name of the company. And it's like we already have CEOs and presidents and founders and all of that. I just want it to be a little unique and different. When I started, yes, it was just me. I now have a team, some contractors that work for me. One gal specifically who handles social media for some of my clients. I work with a videographer who does amazing work. Social media is just it's not my gig, but it has completely changed the media landscape. So I focus predominantly on the PR and the earned media and storytelling. And then I have a gal who's great at the social stuff, and she and I collaborate and we work together on post copy and content. And, Brendan, who does video work, he comes up with the visuals. So we make a great team. And it's nice to be able to have a younger crew. It keeps me honest and young, and I'm always learning from them too. And I think if you're not learning, you're not growing.
Oh yeah. And social media is like its own beast. Like it's like a completely separate, you're like, oh my, and the time it takes to put something together that someone might watch for 30 seconds, if that, and then move on. But it's needed.
Yeah, it is so needed.
It's like a search engine for people.
It really is. And I can do it and I think I'm okay at it, but it's just not my strength. And
Hmm.
truly, you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. You just can't.
So talk to me a little bit about, because I'm so curious of when you're thinking about and you love storytelling, and leaning into that for clients, what does that look like maybe for a new client coming on to work with you and really building that story for them in those avenues you just mentioned, video, social, earned media?
Yeah. So when a client comes to me and they say, okay, this is my new business, I think I need PR. I always ask them, what's the so what? Like, so what? What are people going to care about? What's the story? And I think there's some confusion about the difference between marketing and public relations and earned media. Marketing is more consumer focused, and PR and earned media is more telling your story in the news. And I always joke, I say, I get my clients in the news or out of the news, depending on what they have going on. Because I do specialize in crisis communications too, something that I've always enjoyed that challenge. But yeah,
Which
just
it's
what is
also
this?
needed.
And especially this day and age where we live in such a litigious society that, it's good to have. And I always tell people, writing a crisis plan is like having an umbrella. If you have it, you're not going to need it. And thankfully that's usually the case. But
Which is
different
really
stuff.
nice. Yeah.
Now I forgot your question.
Oh, so just the storytelling. Like, how do you really bring that to life for a client? And like, what's that? Like, if they're new and you're working with them, sorry, we get down rabbit holes, but when you're working with them, like, how do you help them really tell that story?
I ask a lot of questions, a lot. And I spend time there. I spend time with my clients. One of the clients I work with locally is the Kimpton Armory Hotel downtown Bozeman. And, whether I'm there for a media appointment or a meeting, I always try to get there, a little bit before, or I stay an hour after and work in the lobby just to hear what people are saying about the property, or, what they're talking about, what did they like, what didn't they like, so that I can then take that information back to the client. And the Armory is such a cool property. I mean, they have such great history. For those of you that don't know, it's a restored U.S. Armory building, and that has been brought back to life. We're celebrating 5 years as a hotel. Actually, on Friday, we have a big event.
How fun.
Become a really cool social hub for downtown. It's not just for travelers; it's for locals. There's 3 great dining outlets on site, so just the energy in the building is super palpable and contagious.
And it's stunning. The property itself, like how they've restored it. And I think what I love about that project is they did restore an older building and they kept it, and they're like, how do we bring it back to life in a new way? And just as from a guest experience, it's so nice. The staff's great, the restaurants, and that's where the Sky Shed is. And that's so fun, so, and locals are there too. So it isn't just for guests. It's like for everyone that's in Bozeman.
Yep. And Corey Lawrence, who's the owner of the property, he's a longtime Bozeman resident, very ingrained in the community too. And, that's his passion project. And you can see that. The Sky Shed is, best rooftop bar in Bozeman, amazing view. Whenever I have friends and family visiting, that's my first stop with them. And, everyone's welcome. It's not just for hotel guests. So.
Mm-hmm. It's for everyone. Yeah, it's a really great property. And I think what's cool too about that one and some of the other ones around, it's the destination. When you have a conference or you have an event in town, like a lot of it is, the Armory's listed in one of those places to stay, or where some of the event, if not all of the event, will be there too.
Yeah, and they have a great live music program. There's live music almost every night downstairs at Tune Up, which is sort of a little speakeasy whiskey bar. They also have the Armory Music Hall, which is a world-class music venue, in my opinion. Seen some really great acts there. So there's just a lot going on.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit earlier about some international clients too. Do you still have some of those, knowing that not all of your clients are in Montana? What are some of your client industry types, if you don't want to share who your clients are?
No, that's okay. And I can talk about clients. I think they'd be disappointed if I didn't.
Yeah, let's hear about them. What do they do?
I do work with a diverse portfolio of clients, everything from luxury hospitality to beer, wine, and spirits, national food brands, and also local entrepreneurs. And I always say anywhere you can eat, drink, or stay. And so no 2 days are ever the same for me in my business, which I love. So, for example, in Bozeman, we just talked about the Kimpton Armory Hotel. It's this historic property. that has great stories to tell. Locally, also, I'm working with Lazy K Bar Whiskey. You had the guys on a couple weeks ago, and that was great fun. And that's a partnership between actor Cole Hauser, who plays Rip on Yellowstone, a real life ranch owner, David Lucian, who owns the namesake, the brand's namesake, the Lazy K Bar Ranch in Big Timber, and then Britt West, who's a Livingston resident, excuse me, and a longtime Gallo Spirits exec. So those guys have been really fun to work with, and talk about storytelling. Like we could just tell stories for days.
They were fun to have on. And I think just what a cool brand that they have pulled together and a great story too, and a nod to a Montana ranch.
For sure. Yep. And that's the other thing about being a business owner. You can pick and choose your clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is like naming the seven dwarfs. I always leave someone else. Locally, I'm also working with Off the Beaten Path, which is an adventure travel company, also owned by Corey Lawrence, owner of the Kimpton Armory. And they offer, one of a kind travel experiences everywhere from Alaska to Africa, super curated trips, very high
Wow.
end, amazing experiences. I just launched a new gourmet grocery store in West Yellowstone called Yellowstone Provisions. Definitely something that was very needed in the community. Again, not just for travelers, but for residents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Misty Hecht, she's the owner. She's doing great things. So that, brings me back to my food and wine experience. In Bozeman, I'm also working with Blanton Contracting. They're a high-end residential and commercial builder, doing great work, also giving back to the community. So I appreciate that. Just started working with a local author who is releasing the fourth edition of her book called Raising Your Spirited Child. So we'll be doing some local, book readings and signings, and I'm working with her on a national level there.
Wow.
And then internationally, I support PR for Dave's Hot Chicken, which is the country's fastest growing franchise right now.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have one in Billings.
Yeah, we do. I need to go because we just saw a sign for them at the fair because they were a sponsor of the. I know, I know. Yeah, I need to go. I'll go maybe this weekend. Yeah,
I don't typically eat like fast food or fried food, and I'm not just saying this because they're a client, but it's legit. It's
I've
worth it.
heard that. Like it's really good. People love it, and I'm just like Marcel, get with it. Go eat it.
Yeah,
Just haven't been
seriously.
around much.
And that's okay. But yeah, I mean, they've seen rapid expansion over the last couple of years, not just nationally, but internationally as well. So supporting them, on the PR side of things nationally. They opened a couple restaurants in the UK, which has been fun. Also working on the support PR team for Blaze Pizza. Again, another international brand. They're
Hmm.
growing a lot, opening new restaurants. Dave's is opening like between 2 and 6 restaurants a week. So
That's
it's
like
insane,
wow to comprehend like how many if you times that by 365 days. That's a lot.
which is fun for me because I'm working with reporters and influencers all around the world to get
Yeah.
them to try Dave's, especially when we open in a new market like London, right? It's very new to the UK, so that's been really fun.
And for those people that come into something that's more American and come in and try something, it's probably fun, like fun to work with these influencers and people that are like, oh, this is, and to just, get their experience firsthand, maybe for the first time of trying something like that. That's not normally in their market.
Also working with Sambazon, they had their first brick and mortar store in Cardiff by the Sea, San Diego. They started about 20 years ago there, but just recently started a franchising program. So I'm working to support their franchise PR efforts.
Wow. And what kind of store is that for those maybe not familiar?
So it's acai bowls,
Oh, great.
so super organic, sustainably sourced superfoods. Really fun. You start with the acai base and then you can put on, all the fruits and nuts and, coconut shavings. You can make it unhealthy with some chocolate chips, my favorite.
Hmm.
Just a good group of folks there.
And to help them franchise, which is a big deal for the point that they're at as a company, as they've grown to, say, hey, we want to make this a franchise so other people can take it and run with it.
Exactly that. Yep. And all of these clients, I'm like, just come to Bozeman, come to Bozeman.
Hmm. You're like, do you want a location? Let me connect you with a developer,
Yeah, and they're
real
like,
estate agent.
and then we talk about sort of the base pay, the sort of, minimum wage that people are getting in Bozeman, and they're like, wait, where is this? Montana? I have an older sister who actually has never been to see me in Montana. She lives in Indianapolis, and she'd be okay if she knew I said this about her. She's not very outdoorsy, so she's kind of like, well, like, what would we do? And she just, I think she has this very different perception of Montana. Like, I think she thinks I live in a cabin in the woods with no running water and I like take a donkey to work, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I'm like,
I think we had cousins that maybe thought that too, and then my other cousins from Montana, they're like, oh yeah, we only like bathe in the creek once a week. And I was like, you guys stop, like,
yeah,
stop it.
I
We
turn
have
my
every,
mother, all that. Yeah. Yeah. No. So there is a little bit education that needs to take place when people hear Montana. But Bozeman is for sure on the map. I'm working with Bozeman Real Estate Group. They have some really great listings and great projects. They're a great group. But importantly, across all of these clients, my role is the same. And that's just to help them craft compelling narratives and connect them with the right audiences and to build those media relationships that turn stories into lasting brand impact.
yeah. So you live in Montana and you get to do this for companies all across everywhere. What do you think are some of Montana's like compelling stories as we talk about people maybe having misperceptions of Montana? And your sister owes you a trip
Yeah.
out to Montana to visit because I'm not super outdoorsy either, but I find plenty of things to do. So, but anyways, what are some of those compelling stories you think that Montana could better tap into as we tell our own story?
I think it's about the people. That's what brought me back is the people. And we all have a commonality is this great love of the outdoors, whether it be summer, winter, spring, fall, whatever it is. And I first started visiting Montana to fly fish. And since I've been here, I've really expanded my outdoor adventure horizons. My garage looks like Dick's Sporting Goods, right? It's like how many
That's,
hobbies does one person have?
I think that's great for you. Yeah. And in Montana, I think you hit on it with the seasonality of the state where we have all four seasons. You really can be out on the lake in the summer, skiing wherever in a lot of different places in the winter, plus fishing and just camping, doing a lot of different things that Montanans do.
Yeah, I mean, I had a day this spring where I skied a couple laps at Bridger in the morning. I went fishing and then I played 9 holes of golf.
All in one day.
Like, where else in the world could you do that in one day?
Not
Seriously.
many places, especially golfing in the winter. Ski, golf, what do you want to do? You can do it all.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those, beautiful spring days where we still had snow and, 60 degrees in the afternoon. And it's like, okay, let's put on some shorts. It's a heat wave.
Let's go be busy. Well, it's been so fun to have you on. As you know, we like to end each episode with a few rapid fire questions.
I forgot about this. Okay, hit me.
Yeah, yeah. So rapid-ish. And I'm excited for this one because I think we now maybe know the answer. But what's one of your favorite things to do in Montana?
Definitely fly fishing for sure.
And
Yep.
I'm going to ask a sub question of that. Did you come out to Montana when you were in college at all with your fly fishing group?
No, we unfortunately the budget did not allow for us to travel outside of Pennsylvania, so we had to get a little creative there. But that's something that I've done my whole life. Well, not my whole life. When I started fishing with my dad as a middle child, I was sort of always vying for his attention, and it was something that he has always loved to do. And one day I was just like, well, like how hard could this be? Let's try it. And we were actually on the beach in Mexico. And every morning he'd go down to the beach to fish, and he'd always ask us, "Does anyone want to come?" Like, no, Dad, we don't want to go fishing. And
Has
and
three
one
daughters, right? Not that it's
yeah, well, yeah, you're right. But yeah, that's where I'm going with this. I said, yeah, you're going to the beach, right? And I love the beach. He said, yeah, of course. I said, okay, I'll go with you. And I'm just walking up and down the beach and I'm sort of watching him. And I said, Dad, could I try that? He's like, okay, kid, yeah, you can try this. And we were fishing for bonefish, which is impossible. And he says, look, you're not going to catch a fish on your first cast, first 10 casts or whatever. Well, I caught a fish.
you caught a bonefish.
Caught a bonefish, and he was like, show off. So now he and I travel all over the world really to fish. So that's been a fun thing.
What a fun, thing to have with your dad too. I'm sure he just loves those moments and those trips with you. I think really special.
Yeah, I think he got annoyed at the point where the student became the teacher.
It's
Okay.
okay. It's like, Dad, I can teach you something too. Okay, so my next question, is there like a brand or maybe public figure that you think is doing a really good job telling their story, like nailing their storytelling?
Oh my gosh, very good question. I am a Jeep brand loyalist. I've always driven a Jeep.
Okay. What kind of Jeep do you drive right now?
I drive a Grand Cherokee.
Okay.
Candidly, I bought the car for my dog because it has the best cargo space and she goes everywhere with me.
Just to be comfortable.
But I appreciate that they're American made and they're telling a great story. And to me, it's like rugged luxury, like on the outside. And I don't feel bad taking that vehicle like down a dusty dirt road to find a fishing access, site. But on the inside, it has all the nice creature comforts that I appreciate. And it's like I can take my clients in the car with me too. I think specifically the Super Bowl commercial they did with Harrison Ford was like, I appreciate humor, and I thought it was hilarious. So
Hmm.
if you haven't seen that, find it on
Yeah,
YouTube.
I do remember, I think, seeing it, but I'll have to go rewatch it. Jeep. That's good. That's fun. Okay. And my last question for you is what's a book or podcast that you recommend people read or listen to?
Oh my gosh, I've been doing a lot of self-help lately, which is probably a whole nother podcast. Um, I read a lot for work, and so I can't honestly tell you the last time I sat down and read like an actual book for fun.
Yeah, because you do. You're kind of in like needing to read stuff all day, every day.
This is the book that I just read a couple months ago that I thought was really good. It's called Untamed, Brene Brown.
Oh, yeah. I've heard, I'm like, did I listen to that
Yeah.
one? I might have listened to that one. What did you like about it?
Very strong advice, not only professionally, but personally. And I think you can't be a good version of your professional self until your personal self is solid.
Yeah,
So something I've been working on.
I think that's really solid advice for whether you own your own business or you're in your career, whatever that is for you. And it is good. I think I've listened to that one. She's got a lot of good stuff. Like I said, it's been great to have you on. Where can people find you, connect with you if they want to, whether it's they're like, hey, we want to hire her, or I just want to learn more about her, get connected.
Yep, absolutely. Website is biggerfishpr.com. My cell phone is on there, my email, so would love to hear from the audience.
Oh, wow. They can just get right. They can contact you right away.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Blythe. It's been great to have you on and to hear a little bit more about your story because you do such a great job telling the stories of others. So it's been fun to have you on to hear your story.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Like I said, I'm usually telling other people's stories, so it's fun and unique for me to share mine. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll have to make sure to share with your clients too, so they can, support you, how you support them.
Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye. Thanks for listening to The Vault. Connect with us on Facebook at The Vault at 201 North Broadway or Instagram at The Vault_201. Or check us out on our website, thevault@201.com, where you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter. See you next time.